on October 29th, 2015. This is a special environmental programming from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. The title of our episode is The Fire This Time. The LA wildfires in the north and in the south of the Golden State. We'll talk about it. And we also have some polling, recent polling here, that was not available on either the Monday morning quarterback of the week that was. So we'll go for it to get an idea of what's going on. And also today on the Washington front, a lieutenant colonel, I believe, is slated to testify before the committee in the House of Representatives. And it was also announced by Nancy Pelosi that on Thursday the House of Representatives will vote to formally authorize a set of articles of impeachment. We think to formalize the impeachment process. We assume that will be articles of impeachment they will formalize, and there will be a vote, and also they will discuss what hearings will be public, what depositions will be made to the public, etc. At the present time, the hearings are behind closed doors, and that will basically disappear. I suppose they're down to some of the more valuable witnesses. This particular colonel is a 20-year veteran, a Purple Heart type, and he was actually there when the infamous call by DJ Trump to the president of the Zelensky of the Ukraine. So he has first-hand knowledge of that, and he also to the Intelligence Legal Counsel Office, I believe, more than once. So this will be interesting material coming out here. And looking at the latest polling that we have, the public is still pretty much evenly divided on this whole idea of impeachment. It's a difficult issue for people to get their heads around. First of all, it involves foreign policy, which most Americans are not that interested in or attuned to, and really don't have a lot of first-hand knowledge of what is going on. Therefore, the interest level is not as high. Now, back to Watergate, there was actually physical burglaries, something that people could identify because that happens in their city, town, state, neighborhood, etc. But this Ukraine thing, it's not in the sphere. It's actually in the sphere of the Russian Federation. So that in itself is a totally different type of situation, and that is the reason, the difficulty there. And the Republicans have taken to an old stratagem. This is usually the stratagem of a criminal defense attorney, sometimes in civil cases, but the whole idea of due process. Standard Fifth Amendment stuff. You got to have due process. If you don't have due process, you have what is termed a star chamber. And that's effectively the Trump's administration's argument, that this is done behind closed doors, and they're claiming that they are not able to examine witnesses, at least in public. But the Republicans, all these committees, and they are able to examine witnesses, but people don't see that. All they hear again is the word closed door. And now this has a lot to do with how it is presented to the public. And when you plan these types of hearings, and we understand obviously what Nancy Pelosi was trying to do, was set up a process. Democrats in red or extremely red, quote, swing districts could basically not go on the record. But the whole dynamic has changed. Was it thought out very carefully? Not for us to say, because we were not involved in the stratagem there, but when you strategize these type of events, and of course now you'd be actually modeling these events, you'd be looking at probabilities and various other things, including public opinion, focus groups. There's a whole bunch of things that you look at when you consult these types of endeavors. But remember one cardinal rule here, and we'll get to the wildfires in California, is that the president can do many things that a presidential candidate cannot do. And we saw that the action in the Middle East, the killing of this so-called leader of a small group of people that's left. Obviously, most of them have been destroyed by the Russian Federation and the Syrian army and their allies. But again, this you can do, and the way that it was announced on Twitter, early morning, a news conference on Sunday. Therefore, they would get the Sunday talk shows. The headlines have maximum amount of publicity. This fellow is murdered. Now, Jerry Pippin and I covered the announcement of Bin Laden's death. Now, that was a totally different kind of situation there. The world knew who Bin Laden was, etc. This little two-bit character here, most people did not know who he was and will forget him just as quickly. But it did occupy the Sunday news cycle. Now, in the old days, if you were able to occupy the Sunday news cycle, that would be the talk shows. More people watched the talk shows in those days than they do now. So the Sunday news, you were competing with the World Series and NFL football, NBA, just many things people are looking at. So you're not getting the attention that you would normally get, and this is what we try to impress upon people that are doing this strategizing. Anyway, time to leave that. Incidentally, tonight, Game 6 will be in Houston, Texas, of the World Series, and Houston leads the series now 3-2 over the Washington Nationals. We will have a World Series show. Been contemplating how to do that. I guess now we'll do it at the wrap-up of the series, where we can talk about the series, how the series went, the historic situation involving Washington, D.C., and the various teams that have been in Washington, D.C. That's our angle there. So nonetheless, to the wildfires in California, when you have wildfires both in the north and in the south of California, very interesting situation, and you have winds that are at hurricane standards there. So when you have that type of situation going on, you have a grave situation. There's no doubt about that. We'll get back to this World Series story. This is from the Los Angeles Times, incidentally, and have a couple of stories here. Katie Hill, who is resigning from Congress, and what happened at the World Series last night. But let's first get to the fires in Los Angeles. Not a lot of information, but some. This is the fire in the southern part of California that threatened some of the Getty Museum, far off of the 405 freeway in LA, destroyed several homes. And in that era, several people there, including Arnold Schwarzenegger. We talked about Arnold and the Terminator series, and how O.J. Simpson was at one time considered to be the star of the Terminator, the robot, in other words. Anyway, this is in the Los Angeles Times on the 28th of October by Brittany Majira, Matthew Orsted, and Ruben Vise and Hannah Fry. Anyway, a lot of reporters involved here. A wind-driven brush fire chewed through the hillside communities on the west side of Los Angeles. That's where people that are well-heeled lived, burning homes and prompting a widespread evacuations. Anyway, Arnold does live in that area. The Getty fire broke out shortly after 1 a.m. along the 405 freeway near the Getty Center, and spread south and southwest, rapidly burning more than 600 acres and sending people fleeing from their homes in the dark. About 10,000 structures have been placed on the mandatory evacuation orders. That shows you shows the scope of this fire. The Los Angeles Fire Department at least 8 homes, including some on Tiger Tail Road, have been destroyed in the blaze. 5 others were damaged. Some homes were destroyed were adjacent to properties that didn't sustain any damage. So they were literally overwhelmed. This is the LA Fire Department. Crews fighting fires within neighborhoods. They had to make some tough decisions on which houses they were able to protect. Many times it depended upon where the embers landed. In other words, now this is interesting here. The evacuation zone, which was described by fire officials as a box, the famous Mulholland Drive here on the north side, and 405 on the east, Sunset Boulevard, some of the more famous addresses on the south, and Temescal Canyon Road on the west remain in place. After several hours of closure, the 504 was reopened about 6 p.m. The northbound 504 is also open, but the off-ramps on both sides of the freeway between 101 freeway and Sunset will remain closed. That's the California Highway Patrol. The mayor urged residents to leave if they are under mandatory evacuation. Some did, some did not, and some were lucky, as it usually happens. Get out when we say get out, he said, telling homeowners they should not try to fight the fires with garden hose. Well, no, garden hose is not going to work here. Roughly 600 firefighters were involved here, a challenging battle with the Getty fire. And Monday, as a strong Santa Ana winds picked up through the region before the sun rose. Embers were being cast a mile ahead of the body of the blaze. You can understand what's going on here. Very thick smoke going at the same time. And from Mark Carey, he is an LA Fire Department Brigade Chief, stood on a cliff patio beach in Brentwood. This is where the O.J. Simpson used to live. Anyway, the panoramic view of the chart remains as some of the most expensive real estate in Los Angeles. We got a lot of work ahead of us, and he said we're going to be here a long time. He said saving older homes with patios built on dense brush. That's always a problem there. Low humidity, high winds. Not a very good solution, period. And this is part of it. All these firefighters involved out here. The fire would be completely out of control without those, some water. Actually, they doused the fire with water from helicopters and fixed-wing aircrafts, and they also used some chemicals there to put the fire out. The blaze did some of its most serious damage along Tiger Tail Road, where elaborate outdoor Halloween displays of skeletons, pumpkins, and goblins. They didn't need that. Now they got the fire. So, a few miles away, firefighters remained on Cloud Lane and turned off to Kinta Avenue. And this is more LA Pacific here. I don't know where those are. This is some of the Schwarzenegger and LeBron James. They were evacuated from the place. The former governor there, Schwarzenegger, LeBron James, said on Twitter, "We had to emergency evacuate my home, and I've been driving around with my family trying to get rooms. No luck so far." He later tweeted that they found accommodations. Now let me see, who was this? I think LeBron James, maybe. And Kamala Harris, I thought she still lived in... This is a senator running for president. Told reporters her Brentwood home was under evacuation orders. I guess she doesn't still live in Oakland anymore. She moved up. Anyway, authorities drove through neighborhood streets in the dark with flashlights, ordering residents to leave. Further down the street, a man who declined to give his name watched fire trucks lining Sunset Boulevard. The Brentwood resident was on the phone trying to figure out where he should figure out whether he should leave. He has 2 cars and wasn't going to be able to drive them both. Well, interesting here. He said, I'm going to do it with my Ferrari. 47-year-old man, so he doesn't have much to worry about there. On the same streets, Julian Caesar and his mother, Zacharias, were stationed near a fire truck handing out breakfast burritos and coffee to firefighters. My Six Angels food truck. Oh, they had a food truck. Okay. I sort of wondered if they lived in the neighborhood. So they recanted various people here. Somebody named Rodriguez grabbed her laptop phone camera and chargers and stuffed her backpack with snacks and water and left her dorm room. Oh, this is a university set up here. This is San Clarita. There's some universities around here. Anyway, she got what she could and got out of the place there, or out of wherever this university thing. And Rhonda Taylor got back to her home around Palisades is where she lives. That's where OJ's buddy, not buddy, the late Kardashian lived around that area. Some exclusive areas here and some other people here. She had what she called her bag containing clothes, water, and a apocalyptic bag. Anyway, and loaded up her car, grabbed a 36 by 34, painting it with 2 children, I see there. Anyway, away she went. So in other words, what's happening is people here that had time are packing up various apocalyptic type merchandise, ID papers, and that's actually what happened. Where was that? Kenya, Mozambique. Anyway, wherever it was, I know someplace else. Anyway, where they have fires all around the world now to keep it up. Too big. Farthest LATimes here. Wildfires erupt. Now LA and the Bay Area breathing smoke is what the caption here is. By a staff writer named Tony Bazoza. Anyway, from miles away, flames and power outages, smoke plume from California wildfires disrupting the lives of people, degrading air quality from the Bay Area to LA's west side and contributing to widespread school closures are happening. More than 10,000 students across Santa Monica, Malibu, were forced to stay home on Monday after being alerted about 6 a.m. in the morning. This is because of the Getty, what they're calling, fire now. District office said wildfire smoke was one of several reasons they closed all 16 of their schools. So a lot of people there. This is the Santa Monica, Malibu Unified School District. We're under a notice from the Public Safety Power shutoffs in Malibu. I guess Malibu is in the dark also. The west side, Santa Monica Mountains, the San Fernando Valley, and central Los Angeles. So people are by the candlelight. I wonder, is our friend Tennessee Reed and Professor Reed, are they reading and writing by candlelight now? They're up in the Bay Area. And Professor Hare, worried about him because his flat is in a high-rise building. The district's only monitoring station, downtown Los Angeles, and in Resda, we're not showing elevated pollution levels. Okay, anyway. Forecasters predict shifting winds to push the smoke from the fire to the east and northeast towards, downtown Los Angeles, Burbank, the San Fernando Valley on a Monday afternoon, and we've already went through Monday afternoon now. So I am not sure. We'll have to eat Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, and Burbank. We didn't hear any new updates on radio this morning, so who knows? UCLA, they canceled classes. Santa Monica College closed its campus in the Bay Area. Air quality officials said air quality had degraded considerably and warned that smoke from the Kincaid fire will expect to push south into the Bay Area. So this is one of the issues around climate change, and just looking at some of these areas here, what's going on around San Rafael, San Francisco, Oakland, Livermore, San Jose, Antioch. Just looking at this, was that what? That's at 5 a.m. on Monday. Anyway, this is the Kincaid fire here, Southern California. Many readers have gotten used to. Well, not exactly going on here. It is a little different in the hills. Yes, they are. The American Lung Association. Precaution: if you smell smoke or see ash in the air, stay indoors. Well, you can't stay indoors if you have no indoors to stay in. Don't rely on the dust mask and properly fitting. Now, this is something to remember here called the N95 mask. Can filter out lung-damaging particles, but can be difficult to use. Yeah, I recommended this to Reeds and anyone else in that area should have an N95 mask. And as far as air cleaning devices, well, if you're still in your home, that's a HEPA filter, and place it in a single clean room within your house. This is an air cleaning device. Well, that works if you have power. Set your air conditioning unit or car ventilator to recirculate to keep outside air from entering. Well, yeah, you need to close those vents off if you have that capability here. Anyway, this is what we basically have here. This is from the LATimes. Don't have any other. I was listening to the BBC and then I turned over to NPR. It's just a headline here. Their West Side residents grabbed their bags and raced to outrun. Period. And this is basically the same thing here about Palisades and what happened there. And the apocalypse bags, as they call them, trying to get out as quickly as they could very early in the morning. Some other person here grabbed his guitar and two mix, I suppose. You still don't understand what's going on. So LeVar James is on the move also. And some researcher for the Rand Corporation was woken by some neighbor banging on his door. Palisades, about 3 a.m. Panic message from his mother-in-law who lived in a neighborhood under evacuation. This is somebody called Limper. And his wife loaded the car with go bags and had his mother-in-law come over and wait for the order to evacuate. Actually, this Limper here is an expert on climate risk management. Well, he's in the right place at the right time. He says there's a growing awareness in his West Side neighborhood that the very large-scale fires aren't an anomaly. People are tuning up for that. That's why we call the episode The Fire This Time. For their part, Limper and his wife had cut down some trees on their property and trimmed others, placed screens over their ventilators, installed beneath their deck to shield from embers. Very good idea there. Part of the problem is people living in places where they should not. As far as I have a history of blasting out of control in the Dan Keene's house in 61. Preschooler residents were Fernova swept. In Brentwood, and raised 484 houses. Didn't know about that one. So in other words, they are used to fires coming in there and have arrived there in the past. Well, whoops. Let's see what else we got. Sometimes when you're doing these articles here, this is the only one I had not previewed. Anyway, this fellow had taken hundreds of pictures. I suppose he well informed. Let's do a little bit of the numbers here. And, I'll get back to this World Series story here. We just This is the Game 5 in Washington. This is a commentary here, actually. Booed at the World Series, Trump becomes a victim of his own chaos offensive. This is by Lorraine Ali, a TV critic. There's no crying in baseball, but there is booing, jeering, and chanting. Lock him up. President Trump is in the ballpark. Forget whatever happened in the field. Game 5 of the 2019 World Series. We remember there's one rare occasion a setting of former president has been met with a type of high decimal type of lofting, usually reserved for the visiting team. Vasro. It's all the more remarkable considering that the last 48 hours should have been a media boom. We talked about this earlier for the president, rather than a colossal bust with his humiliation at Nationals Park in Washington, D.C., documented on hundreds of cell phones, then posted and reposted for laughs, if not posterity. Although it certainly would be good for future laughs. The public spanking wasn't how things were supposed to go in Trump's world. The ballpark appearance should have been a glory walk for Pontus there, who just hours earlier announced the dramatic demise of the Islamic State leader in a raid by special forces. The world's most wanted terrorist had been eliminated on Trump's watch, a really big reason to brag. Some might say it's cold and hard justice that his most impressive achievement as commander-in-chief was eclipsed by the type of mob mentality he's encouraged and a slogan he popularized. More likely, Trump became a victim of his own chaos offensive. For years, he has been destabilizing the status quo while profiting from the mayhem. Washington's protocol is in shambles. The wall is being built, or ready to be built. Colorado border. Nepotism is a crime when the Bidens are involved, but Trump gives his daughter and son-in-law government positions is different. His personal attorney is a former mayor of New York, a one-time presidential hopeful who is now butt-dialing reporters during sensitive conversations about the need for more cash. Until recently, the president has been untouchable inside the tower of centrifuge he built on his way to the Oval Office, and has kept fortifying with baddie conspiracy spook stories about immigrants at the border and unusual empty boasting about whatever is the best-selling, is the best, biggest, and most beautiful fill in the blank in the history of America and maybe the world. Oh boy. The pandemonium as an agenda, or the agenda, think of it as Lightfinger's infamous chaos isn't a pit, chaos is a ladder speech in the Game of Thorns, but with all the smart bits swiped out for the rosary rhymes and McDonald jingles. Sorry about that. Anyway, no wonder what the sophomoric but admittingly entertaining stadium chants caught fire on social media, while the stunning defeat of a global Fiat terrorist smothered in the background. But it's the situation that demands Trump act as president, that the president's power of improvisation tends to fail him most gravely, and that's exactly what happened Sunday during the press conference about the raid. Even Trump seemed to have lost control of the bedlam he once used as a linchpin. The address should have been the finest hour, but it was minutes into his 40-minute briefing. Trump began embellishing an achievement that was already spectacular and horrific. U.S. forces had chased down Bindati into a tunnel and into a tunnel, and he blew himself up along with his 3 of his children. Trump said he watched the raid, and the Islamic State leader was whimpering, crying, and screaming like a dog before he designated a suicide vest. The president also, he had his eyes on the self-proclaimed caliphate. From the first day I came into office, now we're getting close to 3 years, I would say, where's Baghdadi? Ali Baghdadi. Or Baghdadi, I suppose. And we would kill terrorist leaders, but they were names I never heard of. They were the big name. They weren't the big names. Okay, he finally did this. Anyway, he went on, praised the dog the military used to corner Baghdadi, our canine, as they call it. I call it a dog, a beautiful dog, a talented dog. Was injured and brought back, but we have no soldiers injured. We have nobody even hurt. That's why the dog was so great. Now he's praising the dog. It's getting to be something else here. Any other president would have recognized the gravity of the successful strike, but Trump was compelled to stray from the facts in favor of hyperbole and use his own limited experience to say the drama of the operation sounded like a movie. That was one way to turn the momentous operation into a Sunday matinee. The theme, if there was one, went back again to Trump, and now he predicted the rise of the bad guy Obama caught and killed in a similar fashion, only in Pakistan. I wrote a book. It was really a very successful book, and in that book, about a year before the World Trade Center was blown up, I said there's going to be somebody named Osama bin Laden. You better kill him or take him out. Trump also lamented that he didn't get any credit for this, but that's okay, I never do. The White House released photos of Trump and his men, and there were only men in the Situation Room watching the video of the Baghdadi operation as Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other top advisors of that administration done during the bin Laden campaign. Jerry Pippen and I covered that. We had to get Jerry up about 3:34 in the morning. Anyway, was it 2:30? Anyway, comparisons between the photos taken and now flooded the zone. You include some former White House photographer Pete Souza suggested Trump had staged the event, while others concluded that he was trying to desperately to best Obama. Well, whatever the explanation, Trump destabilized and raised strategy came back to bite him Sunday amidst the muddied political atmosphere he created. It's no longer inconceivable for a military success to be turned into a public relation disaster, or for the head of the executive branch to be subject to a course of catcalls. Trump's own grimace suggestion that he heard the later loud and clear, even above all that. The latter, I'm sorry, I didn't say it later. Loud and clear above all that. Well, anyway, this is Trump. Yes, I didn't want to miss out on that. I thought I would. And we get into the polling. Let me just run this a little segue in here. This is Trump and an obstacle to Republicans winning back Katie Hill's seat. This is Michael Finnegan. Anyway, Katie Hill's decision to resign from Congress has given Republicans an unexpected chance to recapture her seat on the northern edge of LA's suburbs, but President Trump's unpopularity in California will make it a steep challenge. Assuming that DJ Trump is running for re-election, the only hopes that a Republican trying to recapture this seat or any seat that was lost in 2018 would be to distance him herself as far as they could from the national ticket. That's according to Daryl Stargos, the publisher of the nonpartisan Target book, California Target book election guide. Republicans held California's 25th district for 26 years until Stephen Knight character was ousted. Mark Gomez, the LA chair, said the party should unite behind one candidate. Evidently, various people running. Beth Miller, veteran operative for the GOP, said Republican chances have suddenly improved simply because there's no need to unseat a sitting a member of Congress. That's a very good point there. Hill has not said when her resignation will take effect. I thought she resigned immediately. Oh well, she's still there. Once the seat is vacant, the governor, Newsom, will have 2 weeks to call a special election. It would be scheduled for more than 4 months in the future. Won't be much left in that term. A primary will be held first, a little more than 2 months before the schedule. Oh, I see. Special election, any candidate who gets more than 50% would win the seat. Otherwise, the top two vote getters would get on with the voting. This district is in Palmdale and Lancaster, Clarina. Oh, that's... anyway, it's sort of the Cook report changed the district from likely Democrat to leans Democrat on Sunday after Hill announced that she was stepping down. Christy Smith, a person that we see on our Facebook feed there, announced her candidacy on Monday, released a list of endorsements. Christy has taken no time there. And Democrats said they'll be considering a run, including the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and two of unsuccessful candidates here, Jess Phoenix and Brian Cafaro. Anyway, Knight was a former LA cop who served 2 terms in the House before Hill bounced him out. Said he might run for his old seat. We're looking at the whole thing. That's what Knight said. And other Republicans, some former naval pilot there, Mike Garcia, a Lancaster City Council type. Big challenge for GOP, however, will be changing demographics of the district, which covers Simi Valley, Santa Rita, and Palmdale, and parts of Lancaster. Districts European voters, many of them in law enforcement, aerospace, and military, have long favored Republicans, but the European share of the population has suddenly dropped in recent years as Latinos, Asian Americans, and others search for affordable housing have migrated further away from central LA. So some of the previous figures here in the presidential election is 50% Republican, 48% Democrats, 43. That was in 2012. 2016, it was 43% Republicans, 50% Democrats. In the congressional election in 16, Republicans were 53% and 47% Democrats. But in 18, it was 58% Hill got, and Knight, these are what they actually got. Knight had 46%. So the district is changing. It's 41% Latino, 40% European, 8% Asian, and 7% African American. Medium household incomes $82,000, and 28.6% have degrees, BA BS degrees, etc. Trump is a liability for Knight. Republicans were left with just 7 of the 53 seats in the California delegation for the first time since the 30s. The GOP lost all 7 of its Orange County congressional districts, certifying the party's demise in what was once one of the most reliable conservative districts. Hill had a 9-point victory over Knight, and this is all around some sexual affair that they claim she had with a House staffer, which she says she did not have, but she did have an affair with a staffer. Now, there's a little more about it here, that she and her husband were in a freeway relationship with a female staffer. The site also published photos of Hill, and Hill is bisexual. Oh, well, there we go. Anyway, let's get to the polling here and wind this down. Busy day ahead. World Series Game 6 tonight. We got it all. We got it, as they say, going on here. Incidentally, the Houston fans turned the national park into a mini what is that park called? Whatever the orange juice park is there. Anyway, haven't drank that juice in a very long Minute Maid. Is it Minute Maid? Yeah, I think it's worth. Now let's look at this polling from Real Clear, and we'll get to the actual polls here and what's happened to poor Kamala Harris. The fires are not the only thing that ran Kamala out of Brentwood and out of California. Anyway, the only job approval polling we have is Rasmussen. That's a Republican poll. Has old DJ at 45 and 54 disapproval there. Out of South Carolina, we have the Post and Courier poll. We have Biden's up by 11 there. Warren has 19. Bernie has 13. Harris has 11. This is in South Carolina. Steyer is at 5. Buttigieg at 9. Senator Booker at 3. Amy Klobuchar at 3. And so is Tulsi Gabbard. She's at 3. And, well, Beto is only at 1 there. Beto has I guess, had his moment. Well, we don't know. It could be. And the Quinnipiac poll here, what do we have here? This was on Thursday. We didn't get this one in. I don't believe we did. We did get Iowa State in. That was an interesting one. But it has Warren up by 7. Warren has 28 in this poll. Joe Lunchbox Biden has 21. Bernie has 15. Buttigieg did make 10. And Harris at 5. Klobuchar has 3. So she's ahead of the second tier, if I look at it correctly here. Anyway, let's break this down a little bit here. Warren's cutting into Biden's lead in South Carolina is the key, the headline here is Post and Courier. Pimento politics is what they call it. And it is the Pimento State. Anyway, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, surging nationally in recent weeks, is cutting into Joe Biden in South Carolina. A new poll shows Warren has taken leads in other early voting states, Iowa and New Hampshire, as Biden struggled in debates with questions about his son. Still, he is the top choice. Biden leads in South Carolina, which has hovered his leads around 20% since the summer. It has shrunk a bit here. Biden received, still up there. He's 30% to 19%. I wouldn't say much about that. Biden supporting the Post and Courier Change Research poll has fallen from a peak of 46% in May, and soon after he formally entered the race, he lost 6 points from the last poll in August. Not all of his support has gone to the race's progressive candidate. She gained 2 points. Bernie lost 3 points. The biggest gain was the sixth place contender, old Pete of South Bend, and hedge fund manager Tom Steyer. Steyer has been a constant presence in South Carolina, nabbing 5% of the vote. He's been on the airwaves constantly. And the next 4% ahead, Senator Booker, Klobuchar, and the Hawaiian Congress type, Tulsi Gabbard, has 3%. I thought we had that right. The new poll arrived right before all the major candidates come to Columbia for a criminal justice forum at the historic Bennett College. And DJ Trump will be speaking at the forum on Friday while the Democrats appear on Saturday. So that is there. Let's go on. This is the Quinnipiac poll. Anyway, it's on October 24th. The Elizabeth Warren opens up a lead here, 28% amongst Democrats and independents there, while Biden gets 21%, Bernie Sanders at 15%, and we've already given those numbers. Former VP Biden slips, Elizabeth Warren studies, and Bernie Sanders gets his groove back, and the Mayor Pete is back into double digits. This is from the polling analyst here, Mary Snow. Biden is still viewed as the best candidate who has the best chance of beating DJ Trump, but he's not as strong as this is questioned today. In this poll, Biden gets 42%. This is down from 48% there from his high of 56% in April. Warren comes in second on electability question with 20%, followed by Sanders at 14%. Sanders is viewed as the most honest Democratic candidate for president by 28% of Democratic voters and independents, and those who lean that way, followed by Biden and Warren, who receive 15%. Sanders and Warren on the top, at the top of the question on which candidate cares more about people like me. Sanders gets 28%, Warren gets 24%, Biden only 14%. That's not a good question for Biden. Biden and Warren continue to be close on the question of who would be the best leader. Biden at 28%, Warren at 24%, and Bernie at only 13%. But he's risen up from 9%. That's Bernie. Bernie regained his footing after returning to the campaign trail following the heart attack. He outshined all Democrats as being seen as the most honest candidate. Snow, she's the analyst, added. And Democrats and Republican leaners pay attention to last week's debate, as 29% say they watched or listened to all or most of the debate. And number 43% said they paid close attention to news stories. And 72% who either watched the debate or paid closest attention to news stories about it. 26% said Warren did the best job, followed by Buttigieg, Biden with 12, and Sanders with 11, and Klobuchar with 8. When asked who did the worst job there, 15% said Biden, 11% said Tulsi Gabbard. I didn't know she got into the debate that much. I did not watch the debate, I have to confess. Despite coming on the attack at the debate, Elizabeth Warren viewed as doing the best job, followed by Mia Pete helped his standings at last week's debate. Didn't help Joe Biden, who saw his numbers slip to where they were in early July following the first Democratic debate. The question remains whether this is a blimp or a trend. Snow added, and this was taken on the 17th to 21st of October. 1,587 self-identified registered voters nationwide with a margin of error of 3.1%. Survey included 713 Democrats and independents who lean that direction. The margin of error there is 4.6%, and it was directed by, as usual, Douglas Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz, using cell phones, our mobile phones, etc. Let me get this last one in here and we'll quit while we're ahead. This is WQED out in California. Headline is Harris loses the ground in California to front runners Warren and Sanders. Poor old Harris. This is a Change Research here, a poll for WQED, less than 5 months before Californian vote in 2020. The poll was taken last week. Democratic candidates find Warren is the top choice at 28%, followed by Sanders at 24%, and VP Lunchbox Joe at 19%. Oh boy. Mia Petey at 9%, followed by Harris at 8%. The statistical try there. Tom Steyer, and the other California race rests at just 1%. Well, he is the fellow that is funds manager. By gender, Warren is the top choice with female voters, 31%, followed by Sanders with 23%, Biden with 21%. Harris and Mia Petey was 8% and 7% respectively among men. Sanders edged out Warren 25 to 23. That's pretty statistically there. Biden at 16. South Bend at 10 and Harris at 9. Poor Harris couldn't catch a break here if she wanted one. Sanders is a favorite with Latinos at 28, followed by Warren and Biden, 22 each. Harris at 7, and Buttigieg following up the thing at 6%. And the other, Julian Castro, he's running out of money at 1% there. Amongst African Americans, Biden is a favorite with 30%, followed by Bernie with 20%. He's getting that up some. Harris is 16%, Warren with 30%. Sanders, on the other hand, is doing relatively well with voters of color. And we may be seeing early signs of a stall in Warren's rise that rests squarely on her low numbers amongst people of color. That's Change Research co-founder Pat Rowley said. Her base is clearly Europeans in general and specifically European women. Well, that can cause a problem somewhere here, and this ends that poll. Our episode on the 29th of October is The Fire This Time, based upon James Baldwin's epic novel The Fire Next Time, but we've done several takes on that for California as part of our climate reporting, and this is to climate, and also could be to structural too. The greedy utilities in California have not updated their power infrastructure, their power lines, transmission stations, etc. So those are questions that have to be asked by the political class. We don't know where the presidential candidates stand on this. Incidentally, we are still working on our Bernie Sanders special out of Queens, and we decided to incorporate the visit of Bernie Sanders to Detroit, and where Ms. Talibi endorsed Bernie. She is the representative out of Detroit, and at the same time they paid tribute to the long-serving congressman, the longest-serving congressman, at least African-American congressman, John Conyers Jr. He died on Sunday at age 90. We'll also have a proper tribute to him. Our tribute to Elijah Cummings was titled Mr. Cummings of Maryland. You can get it on iHeart, YouTube, Spreaker, and various other outlets that we have. And also there's a Monday morning quarterback there. I'm kind of losing my voice. But we'll see you soon with the Bernie Sanders